The Fukushima Daiichi meltdown was not solely a natural disaster. It was a catastrophic cascade of system failures, deeply intertwined with critical, often overlooked, software vulnerabilities and design logic flaws that paved the way for nuclear ruin. The first critical failure was rooted in the very foundation of its design: the miscalculation of natural threats, heavily influenced by the software models that underestimated tsunami height. Decades before the disaster, a 2002 internal report from TEPCO, the plant operator, and later, a 2008 study by the Japan Society of Civil Engineers, predicted the possibility of a much larger tsunami than the plant's 5.7-meter seawalls were built to withstand. These warnings, often generated through complex simulations and computational models, were ignored or dismissed. The emergency diesel generators, vital for cooling, were then placed in vulnerable basements at sea level, based on these flawed threat assessments. When the 15-meter wave finally struck, these generators, the plant's last line of defense, were instantly submerged, silenced by a software-driven design flaw that dismissed a catastrophic reality. What critical information did those early models truly hold that was overlooked, or simply coded out of existence? Then came the second critical failure: the inherent control logic within the emergency core cooling systems themselves. Reactor 1, the first to face meltdown, possessed an isolation condenser, a passive cooling system designed to operate without external power for hours. But its automatic control logic was designed for specific operational parameters, not the unprecedented station blackout scenario that unfolded. As instrument power began to fail, operators found themselves in a digital darkness. The IC's automatic valves would cycle, opening and closing based on core pressure, but its effectiveness was compromised, and the manual controls to override this logic were confusing or non-responsive in the deteriorating conditions. The precise software sequences intended to prevent overheating instead faltered, demanding a rapid, accurate human response that the chaotic environment made impossible. A system designed to be autonomous became a desperate, losing battle against time. The third failure was the near-total collapse of the plant's monitoring software and data acquisition systems. With the loss of AC power, critical sensors, gauges, and their digital interfaces went dark. The operators, trained to rely on a constant stream of real-time data from control panels and computer screens, were plunged into an information vacuum. They couldn't definitively know the water levels inside the reactor vessels, the true pressure readings, or the exact status of critical safety valves. This wasn't merely a hardware issue, it was the failure of the digital nervous system, the software that collects, processes, and displays information, leaving the operators flying blind, making life or death decisions based on guesses and incomplete data. How do you fight an invisible enemy when your digital eyes are shut? This led directly to the fourth software failure: the breakdown of communication protocols and the digital infrastructure supporting them. As multiple units spiraled out of control, communication between the plant, TEPCO headquarters, and government officials became intermittent and fragmented. The software systems for incident reporting, emergency alerts, and data sharing were either non-existent for such a scale of disaster or failed under the strain. Crucial information was delayed, distorted, or simply never reached decision-makers. Orders were misunderstood, directives were not received, and the unified, coherent response necessary in a nuclear emergency dissolved into a desperate struggle against isolation, each entity working with a different, incomplete picture. The human element, already under immense pressure, was crippled by a lack of reliable digital links. Finally, the fifth critical software-related failure lay in the human-computer interface design and the training simulations. Operators, while highly skilled, were trained on specific failure scenarios. The complex, cascading failures of Fukushima, a station blackout, a loss of all cooling, multiple reactor meltdowns, and hydrogen explosions simultaneously, exceeded any pre-programmed simulation. The control room interfaces, designed for normal operations or isolated incidents, became overwhelming. Alarms screamed indistinguishably, vital information was scattered across failing screens, and the digital pathways for manual overrides were not intuitive for such a catastrophic confluence of events. The software, in its presentation of information and its training models, failed to prepare human operators for the ultimate test, highlighting a profound disconnect between digital design and real-world extremity. Fukushima stands as a chilling testament. A stark reminder that even the most robust physical structures, protected by layers of redundancy, are utterly dependent on the invisible lines of code and the logic they enforce. The software, whether in design, control, monitoring, communication, or interface, is not merely a tool, it is the central nervous system, and its hidden vulnerabilities can unleash consequences that reshape history. The true lesson is that catastrophic events often begin not with a bang, but with a series of tiny, digital miscalculations and overlooked lines of code, waiting for the perfect storm to reveal their deadly power.